So greetings, people, once again. This is Ara Emmanuel, standing in for Chakara TV and the Oyald organization. Is the Oyald table. This is a platform where we like to have constructive discussions, especially from what I like to call African youths, or at least relatively younger Africans. So they give their perspective, because I think their perspective counts a lot for the future. And our, should I call it, methodology here is usually we try to identify the problem, propose some solutions, and then have discussions around this. So usually we have invited a couple of, should I say, interesting personalities today who are going to be giving me their perspective with regards to the subject of the rising spate of domestic violence, the African perspective, or maybe better still, the spate of domestic violence, the African perspective. So with me today, I have Dr. Corinne, or Corinne, as she likes to be referred to, who is a legal mind and also very interested in women-related subjects. Let me put it that way. I also have Handel, Mr. Handel. Can you guys get me?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. At one point it was like freezing. So I also have with me Mr. Handel, who is Vice Principal of Academics, Jasmine College, Asaba, graduate in philosophy, seasoned speech facilitator. And I think you also have a very strong opinion in regards to this subject matter. I don't envy him in such a subject like the one we have today, especially with the two interesting ladies we have today with us. Last but not least is Patience Anekele, who is a PhD candidate on diaspora and migration studies, peace and conflict scholar, conflict management. So maybe I left out something there, just trying to be as brief as possible introductions. When is your time to express your views on the subject? You might add some more, should I call it, spices to your personality in terms of introduction before going into the subject matter, just to give the candidates or the viewers context. So, as I said, this is a subject which is very controversial right now. I think just last year, there was some issue with some gospel artists in Nigeria, which I don't want to go into the details. We're having lots of such. It was the most, should I call it, public incident that happened recently. We have had lots of these cases. And I think we don't need to, it's not a subject we need to present. I mean, most people are familiar with it either locally around them or via the news outlets we have. So I just want each and every one of you to just present your view on the subject matter. Some people may think it is real. Some people may think it's exaggerated. Some people may think it's not what others think it is. So I just want everyone to give their view from how they understand it and how they see it and what is the problem. And then we might have some brief. So usually everybody's going to have 2 minutes to present their views. We have some reactions around it briefly, as I said, keyword briefly. And then everybody's going to have 5 minutes to discuss or present some solutions. And then we have some reactions around it. Then we have closing statements. So basically we try to keep it around an hour, you know. So let's be as brief as possible. It's going to just be a discussion, not really like a debate or anything, just a discussion. Very friendly, casual conversation. So I would like to start with Dr. Corinne. Give me your views on this. Thank you.
Hi, Emmanuel. Thanks so much for giving me the floor. And just to pick on your question, I believe it's definitely real. Domestic violence is definitely real. And it's important to contextualize it, or better still define what we mean by domestic violence, right? And I always like to bring it back to the bigger conversation of violence against women. which is a form of discrimination, right? And we can see that this discrimination or violence disproportionately affects women. We're not disputing that men too are affected, but this is a phenomenon that definitely affects women. So let's just bring it there. We are saying there are male victims, but right now we're going to focus on women. So what do we mean by domestic violence, right? In the bigger conversation of violence against women, we speak on physical, sexual, psychological violence occurring in the family or domestic setting, right? Which is not just limited to battering or beating, but includes the sexual abuse of girls in the household, intimate partner violence, dowry-related violence, marital rape, though people feel like that's not a thing. You have female genital mutilation, as well as other harmful traditional practices that women are subjected to. And it's important to understand that violence against women, precisely domestic violence, is a manifestation of historically unequal power relations between men and women that have roots in colonialism, as well as sociocultural norms. And if we look at 2023, we cannot deny that there is conflict happening, right? There's a war on terror happening. You have the Russia, Ukraine. So we're in sort of war against terror. So it's important to look at militarization and militarism, right? Because those two are important causes in actually bringing about violence in homes. And even state indifference towards the high levels of violence that women experience too is a cause of the impunity that we see around violence. So this phenomenon has great impact on women, the victims, right? And this impact range from human rights violations, because when women are harmed, I mean, the right to life is infringed, the right to dignity, freedom from discrimination and inhumane and degrading treatment. So all those are actually things that we need to pay attention to. You know, so indeed, domestic violence is a big issue. It's real, and we need to be alert around this reality and this issue.
Thank you. I think that was brief, but very straight to the point. Given that you still have some time left, I just wanted to give some reactions to that. You mentioned something on colonialism.
Yeah.
I don't know what the other panelists think. But personally, I usually have this feeling, which I stand corrected, but I think part of the causes of domestic violence is somehow the clash of cultures. So from a man's perspective here, I might not be one of the panelists, but at least I have an opinion which I will just share. From a male's perspective, I think we are somehow confused because we have, that's why we said the African perspective. We have the African culture, which has its own values, and now we have the Western culture, which is also coming with its own values. The role of the man in the African culture and the role of the man in the Western culture is not exactly the same, but somehow the African man and this generation especially is torn between the two cultures. Which one do I respect? Which one do I follow? Because somehow they are not the same. So when a man expects to pay the bride price, be the breadwinner, head of the family, these at times does not tie with some of the Western values which we are learning. And all of these things are not to give any excuse to domestic violence. But I think in an attempt to get a solution, at times we should identify all the causes and then try to solve or at least mitigate or manage them if we cannot eradicate it completely. Yeah. So I think there is that, it's one of the aspects I think we should touch a little more light on, the clash between the African culture and the European culture, which might be one of the causes of this domestic violence, because a lot of men you talk to somehow feel trapped, feeling like I still have to play my role as an African man, but maybe not get the respect as an African man. Not to justify the violence, but it might be a cause. I'm just putting that out there.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to react to that, or maybe the other panelists say, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Iman. Oh, sorry, Patience.
All right. First and foremost, I kind of like the background that Dr. Corinne already established. And because of that, I'm not going to dwell so much on the background. But one thing I want to emphasize is that domestic violence is not gender specific. Yeah, I know she has focused on the female, the women aspect of domestic violence, but domestic violence is not gender specific. domestic violence generally is underreported. So there are people who do not actually speak up even when they're in an abusive relationship. So it is underreported. Domestic violence is not just physical violence. Most people, when they go to court, when they go to different places and you ask them, is this man physically abusive towards you? They say no. You ask the man, is the woman physically abusive towards you? They tell you no. But the truth is, there is a deadly, in fact, the deadliest aspect of domestic violence is the psychological violence, because this violence cannot be expressed. You can't see bruises on the person's body, but the person is going through pain. So these are violence that are underreported. Now, when we talk about the causes of domestic violence, where Dr. Corinne also made mention of colonialism. For me, I do not think colonialism has so much to do with domestic violence, because when you also look at the Western world, you see that they've been able to manage the relationship between families, between children, between husbands and wives. They have protective laws. But in the African context, what I would basically say is responsible for domestic violence is, one, our cultural inclination, right? There's this culture of, a woman has no rights, a woman is supposed to be in the kitchen, a woman is not supposed to be heard, a woman is supposed to be seen and not being held. So these are some of the cultural practices that have kept domestic violence on the rampart. Then one major thing, because we're looking at the trends and patterns of domestic violence, one major thing that has actually brought out this whole idea of, violence everywhere is the economic factor. And I think more than any other reason or any other factor right now, it is the economic factor. In the past, our parents, our forefathers would marry a wife, keep the wife in the house. She bears children, she takes care of the home, she doesn't go out to work, she doesn't do an 8 to 5 job. But right now, because of the globalization, because of the need to step up the standard of living, you see a woman who leaves the house the same time with the husband. So there's so much tension, there's so much pressure. A woman goes out to work, her boss is a man or her boss is a woman, the woman is commanding her, stressing her. No, because she needs the money, she cannot express her grievances to her boss. So she carries these grievances back to the house. Same goes with the man too. The man goes out, he's stressed, he cannot express his frustration and anger in the office. He bottles this up, brings it to the house, and once there's a little misunderstanding, it just triggers, and before you know it, violence becomes the order of the day. So more than the cultural aspect, we need to talk about the economic aspect and how we can mitigate it. For now, I think I will stop here while the discussion continues.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you have thrown a lot of light. I missed out the economic side of things. I was focusing mostly on the cultural, but the cultural is somehow linked to the economic side of things, as you highlighted. So I don't know, do we have some reactions based on what has been said right now, Mr. Handel?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I am very happy that the ladies in the house have actually opened the floor before, I'm able to say anything. Now, I want to say thank you to Dr. Corinne and then to Lady Patience. For me, I flow in the line and theory of Lady Patience. I want us to trace this issue of domestic violence back to the very beginning. Domestic violence starts from the home. And like Lady Patience said, it's not gender-centered. It happens both ways. Okay, now there is this thing that we need to understand. Domestic violence, the man is affected. the woman to the man to the woman, parents to children, children to maid, even maid to children.
Yeah.
These level, they suffer serious domestic violence that we really need to look into and find lasting solutions to it. I would flow in line with the African culture and tradition, which is a major factor why we have this domestic violence prevailing in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. Number one, we understand that the African culture has already given the dominance to the man. So a man dominates every part of the culture, and the woman is only meant to partake in the culture and not really be in the culture, if you understand what I'm talking about. For example, I was seeing a clip a few days ago, and I saw a picture on Facebook about ladies who go through some torture before they get married. They call it perseverance, according to the tradition, perseverance. So you check the ladies' backs and you see marks. These are everlasting marks. For them, it's tradition. Who does the flogging? Of course, the man. How much can you persevere in my home? And now the ladies go about with this mark forever stigma, and it's pathetic to think that that kind of a thing happens. If we go back to the family line, we would see that there are wives who cannot even stand when their husbands are back from work. There are husbands who cannot even stand it when their wives are back from work. There are children who run into their rooms as soon as they hear their father's horn. It's not respect. It's not about respect. This is domestic violence. And you see some kids, the way some children handle the maid in the house, it's a problem, and vice versa, the maid to the children. So what the African culture has actually done to our world, to our society, is such that the woman has no voice per se. The woman has no voice. Now, it's mostly the women and the girl child, according to what Dr. Corinne said. It's affecting the female gender and the male and the children, the girl child. But just like what Lady Patience talked about, the man on his own goes through, like there is this, we don't understand it, because a man who is trying to cater for his home, and then he comes back home and is expecting to bring something to the table, and he's just imagining the words that are going to come from the woman's mouth. Where are your mates? Your mates are doing well, you're not doing well. These things can actually send someone to suicidal attempts. So we really need to look at ways to blend the African culture and see how to take off this very domineering perspective of what the African culture has done to man, and see how our society can be a better place for us all.
Oh, thank you very much. I like the way you walk the lines when it comes to gender discussions. You do not try to take any sides, which is a very safe path to take. Okay, given that we still have like 7 minutes on the first part of our discussion, which was to like understand the problem, I want to go back to Dr. Corinne. There was a question I touched after her presentation of the problem, which I think she had some reactions with regards to that. I don't know if you still recall, or should
I still do. Thanks, Emmanuel. And thanks again, Handel and Patience, for your contributions. So we've been speaking a lot about the African culture, right? How it may seem to, there's a cause there as to domestic violence, but it's important to also know that the African culture is, you have positive values and harmful values to this culture, right? And if we go back to pre-colonial Africa, it's very important to know that pre-colonial Africa, the societies back then were egalitarian. So in as much as maybe we're in the 21st century, we've come a long way, we cannot downplay the legacy of colonialism. And why do I say that? When colonialism comes in, it comes and disrupts these egalitarian societies that we had with the introduction of gender, right? Because Handel, I stand to be corrected, but I think the Yoruba back then at some point, they never knew anything as woman. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But either way, back then there was nothing as like women in particular. So when the colonial authorities come in, they bring their own new sort of system, which disrupts whatever it is we have going on here. And again, the egalitarian societies were respectful and tolerant towards each other, right? But then again, in imposing whatever they need to impose, there is violence that gets in there. This whole hierarchy as well that creeps in, as in the white man, the black man, the black woman, already that thing is going to have repercussions, right, in time to come, because with this ladder, we already have the black woman that's at the bottom there, right? And this woman during colonialism, she was raped, she was abused. So sexual violence was really an issue back then. So imagine yourself as a man living during those times, and your colonial master just comes and, you know, sexually assaults your woman, right? You as a man, you will feel like, I mean, your masculinity in a way is going to be like, it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be affected. And you're going to look for maybe ways to reassert that, you know. And a good example here would be to look at South Africa. South Africa, it's there's a whole lot that's happening in South Africa in terms of violence against women, specifically rape, right? And till today, we still speak about the consequences of apartheid on the Black people, right? In terms of what it did, the violence that it used, the force that it used, actually not messed up, we could say, the psyche of Black men. And so there's so much, I don't know, maybe trauma, right? Whereby now with this trauma that they're living with, they have to reassert this fighting. But then again, that's not to say it's only apartheid, because economic factors come into play, as Patience noted. We were living in an economic crisis. So most of these factors we should remember are sort of interrelated, right? It's not to say there's only one cause, but most of them work in conjunction with each other to create what it is that we have right now. And so yes, so that was my point of colonialism. It's just to understand why is it that we have it now. I mean, and I think it's important to know that it sort of the culture that we have, it's not always been harmful, it's been good, but yes, we need to address how these harmful African values in the culture that don't allow men to speak up. You know, because men go through a lot. We're not going to dispute that. This whole notion of being masculine, as in you cannot cry, you cannot vent, that needs to be tweaked. Men need to have an outlet. You know, men need to be seen as human, and so forth and so forth, in order for us to, you know, come a long way towards addressing this issue. And Lady Patience mentioned a very important point as to domestic violence is underreported. We need to understand why is it underreported, right? There is this whole notion again of socialization whereby women are told to endure, and you don't want to also, I mean, leave out your man to hang out dry or throw this person under the bus, because you need to constantly save face, because the way we've been socialized is we need to constantly protect not only our man, but you need to protect the family. It needs to be good. We need to always give this perfect picture that everything is rosy, is rosy, and that in a way doesn't really necessarily help our cause. So that was going to be my 2 cents to the conversation. Thank you.
Okay. So we have 3 more minutes. Is there any other reaction?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I want to add to what Dr. Lawrence said, because when we talk about domestic violence, at times we tend not to understand the dynamics of the level of violence in our society. First and foremost, I was particularly pleased with the theme of the Women's Day for this year being gender equity. Now, because of social media is actually creating more problems in the home front currently, because there's so much information going on around, forgetting that in every learning process, we need to also put into consideration our specific culture. And that is what I feel most people are not doing right now. Now you imagine yourself, somebody comes to you and say, in the Western world, men and women, they share everything equally, they share rent, they share everything, forgetting that in Africa, we do not have equal strength. In the West, they've had this gender equality in terms of education. I'm not, like I always say, I'm not an advocate of gender equality. I would rather go for gender equity any day, because they have had exposures. You've seen their women being astronauts, for a very long time, but these professions are new in Africa. Women are just discovering their place in the educational system, in the knowledge production system in Africa. And now you see somebody saying that, oh, we want bills to be splitted equally. You are earning 100,000. Your husband is earning 500,000 and you want to split bills equally. Does that even make sense? It doesn't. I don't see anything wrong with, oh, you're earning 100,000, he is earning 500, or you are earning 500, he is earning 500. Okay, what do we do? 10%. If you're saying 10% of 100,000, that's about 10% of 100,000 is about 10,000. And the person earning 500 should also drop 10%. Yes, but when you now say you're contributing everything equally, you're doing the house chores equally, it creates a problem because we've not gotten to that stage in Africa. We're still trying to grow. So social media, I think one of the ways in which we can solve this problem is when you pick an idea, you sieve it and place it in the African context. We've not been able to transmit this knowledge and put it within the African context so that it can work for us. Then there's this also the issue of families. Yes, you go to a family, you see extended family being part and parcel of the running of the family. This is becoming an African problem. In the past, you don't find people saying, oh, I don't want my mother-in-law around, I don't want my father-in-law around. It used to be a communal kind of living. But with this is where I actually aligned so much with Corinne when she said colonialism and the rest of it. With colonialism came individualism. And what we are having right now is individualism. Nobody wants to accommodate anybody anymore. So the level of violence keeps increasing and increasing and increasing. So when we want to talk about these issues, how do we find solutions to them? We need to look at some of our cultures. We need to look at some of the cultures that we have borrowed from the Western world. Yeah.
I don't think he's here.
Hello?
I don't think he's here. I think his network got jammed or something.
Oh, okay. Hande, you might want to say something. Anyone
okay, yes, I want to add something to what you just talked about now. Relevance of women in the society. It's very important because I know in Nigeria, when I'm in this field where, when you're recruiting, there is always this specification, which is not found in the Western world, a female janitor wanted, a male janitor wanted. Now, it doesn't bring, it's not about, why should the gender be a problem in giving out a particular kind of job to some particular kind of people? So it's a problem because you have people who are willing and capable, but because of gender, you tend to take them out and kick them out of it because you don't think they can actually fit into the job prescription you're vying for. But on the other hand, I think we need to do much more than just the cultural aspect of our society. We need to look at what happens in the religious as well. Religious leaders and our religious society does not even give room for, the woman relevance, the relevance of women in society. Because when each time there is a conflict in the house, you go see your pastor keeps telling you, you're under your husband, you're under your husband. Now, there is more to that interpretation of you're under your husband. No, the African mentality believes that no matter what you go through, you're under your husband, and whatever he tells you to do, you do. Even if maybe it's taking your head off. How can the woman sustain that? Now, the same thing happens when you try to explain to them, see, I am not making so much to actually take care of my family. and you're the man of the house. Do whatever you can. That's what the Bible says. A man provides for the house. So you see yourself doing much more than you're supposed to do, because you feel you just have to please society. So I think our religious bodies also have to play very vital roles in settling and handling issues that has to do with domestic violence.
Is Mr. Aria back?
No, he's not.
How about Dr. Corin? She's still there?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
here.
she is.
Yeah, so
The conversation is still on record.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Handel, thanks very much for your religious argument you made. And I would like for us to just think about it, right? When we speak of religion, Christianity, Islam, are they African? Can we start there? Because personally, I don't think they are, because that's something that's going to stay with us, and we know.
Wait. Dr. Lauren, I think there's a new debate. A new debate about how Christianity originated from Africa.
Okay.
From Africa.
All right.
That's the new argument we are putting forward now, that Christianity has been with Africa even before colonialism.
Okay. But let's just say then the form of religion that we may have.
The imposition.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So it's not us. So this comes with its own. It's not though. It's not. And again, we need to think about how we as Africans, we've adopted religion. I'm Christian. I'm not going to pretend I'm not, right? But I'm still African, and I respect the culture. So we're in a situation whereby, fine, we want to hold on to our roots, right? But we already live with this, for example, imported, sort of religion that's not going to go anywhere, right? So how do we then embrace this? Because of course, I feel like sometimes the scriptures can be misinterpreted sometimes to suit a certain sort of narrative or culture. The whole submission topic, maybe we'll have to have a different panel, to dig into it.
Someone said the Bible was written by a man, that the books of the Bible were written by men. So
they were though. They were. They were. So I don't know, but yeah, it's just food for thought.
I think.
I don't know if Handel will agree with that, but most of the books of the Bible were written by men.
Please help us, Handel, please.
I have something to say here. Yes, we know Doctor, you just scattered the stable now. But let's come from another angle.
All right.
The thing is, in Africa, we understand the word enculturation. Okay. Now, enculturation is all about doing the same thing Christian in the African way. Okay. Now, if, for example, we're looking at, that's why we have the traditional marriage. Instead of we have the traditional marriage, we have the Christian marriage. Both are very religious kind of marriages, okay? Now, we have to bring in that enculturation to our everyday life to be able to manage the situation. I'll give you an instance. Now, in the Bible, we hear of Elijah going to a widow for food as instructed by God. In the African context, it seems like a taboo for a man to ask a woman for assistance. Now we need to dilute that concept and see ourselves as humans who need help whenever we can get, wherever we can get, from whomever we can get it from. Same thing happens when it comes to appointments. You go to churches and they tell you, yes, such a certain gender cannot be a priest, a certain gender cannot be a religious of some certain order, And then you're asking yourself, yes, we're all made by God. But in the Bible, you can see that there were women prophets, there were women who actually, women of God who were very, very active and spoke about God's word. So we have to forget about this idea of the man has to be in charge before the woman comes in. Lady Patience, you talked about the equity, which is what I think we should, inculturation should bring about that equity in our African culture, and not just see it as if, okay, it's Christian, yes, Christian tradition, but that enculturation is there.
Yeah, but Andy, when you talk about Christianity, Islam, and the rest of it, I think there is a fundamental error in the way we kind of think about this religion, right? If you look at the history of Christianity, you'll notice that Christianity is an offshoot of Judaism.
You're right.
Right? And Islam is also an offshoot of Judaism.
You're right.
So the culture that was being practiced by the Jews largely influenced what is documented in the Bible, right? But when we adopted the Bible, we just could not modify the Bible. We saw it as the absolute truth. I'm not doing religious studies here now, but I'm just bringing the different dimension of scholarship in this discourse. Now, even in our African traditional religion, there were specific religious practices that were specially like women were excluded from those practices.
You're right.
So it's not just about the importation of Islam and Christianity. Some of our traditional religious worship actually excluded women. So there's been this gender inequality all along, right? It's not a Western imposed idea, but we can say that, oh, the Westerners had their own ideas too, because even in the Western region, even in Britain, for instance, when education started, women were just restricted to singing in the church, in the monasteries, and the rest of it. They were not allowed equal opportunity with the men. So suppression, women's suppression did not start with Africans like they want to make us believe. In their respective cultures, they had this also in practice. Now, but the major issue with us is the fact that the Westerners, they've been able to modify their own system to be more accommodating towards women. That is where I feel we're still lagging behind. It is not all bad story in Africa, because I was having a conversation with a professor friend who is in the US, and he said female professors are not paid the same amount with their male counterparts. But here in Nigeria, as long as you're a professor, whether you're a man or a woman, you earn the same salary. So it's not all bad news for Nigeria and Africa. It's just, how do we marry the Western culture with the African culture? How do we place humanity above gender? How do we place humanity above all the other circumstances? I talked about gender equity. I will always emphasize that aspect of human life. Equity is everything. Fairness, is it fair? The rotary four-way test is everything for me. Is it fair? If you were a man, if we turn the table, if we do the reverse, will you take what you are dishing out? That's how I feel. If we really need to have honest conversations about this, try as much, whether you're a man or a woman, switch in your head, just switch to the opposite gender and ask yourself, is it fair? Can I take it? And I think we can start from there.
Emmanuel said he has some load shedding, so he has no light, so he'll be back in a few. He's just busy sorting.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, Handel, sorry. Sorry for breaking the table or shaking the table, but I do agree with you that religious leaders can do much more in terms of, you know.
Oh, we lost her for a very long time, you know.
No. So I do believe that religious leaders can do much more to actually help, you know, the course of domestic violence. Because if you look at it, like the women that are subjected to violence, or when women go through a lot, the first place they go, for recourse is the church, right? It's prayer,
Right.
you know, prayerful women and so forth and so forth. So it really does no service to women or to society or communities when women are enduring such violence or whatever mistreatment, but you tell them no, endure. It really, I don't know, but I feel like it really does a disservice to humanity. And I think I really liked your point where you mentioned we're human beings at the end of the day, right? So it's important for us to just treat each other with respect, just on the basis of that humanity. Let's forget, not necessarily forget, but let's put those roles, you know, like underneath us. Let's look at each other as human beings that are worth, you know, respecting, protecting, and yeah, I think it will help us really, really go a long way.
You know, I think these values should start from the home. You know, I work in a school and I know how much I try to make everyone feel very relevant. You know, when I believe in the no bully system, for no reason, no bully. Because when a girl child comes to you to report, you know, this was done to me by a male scholar, you're asking yourself the question, okay, is it because you feel you're more superior to her, because you feel you have the muscle to do this or to do that? Now, for me, I try to do a kind of a balance, you know, I try to work on their psyche, to tell you, listen, I tell my female scholars, you know, I tell them, for you to excel in life, try as much as possible to read as much as you can. Read to the point where you're not approachable. A man doesn't just approach you like that. A man should be able to see your value, you know, evaluate your potential before he can even approach you. Now, that way they see themselves as, okay, fine. It's not all about the muscles. It's not all about how many kilometers you can run in sports, but it's how much you can actually give to society. And that way they are, you know, you see them, they compete when it comes to debates and classworks. They want to do everything. And each time you see them excelling, you see the ladies, they cheer themselves up. Like when you ask a general question, and then you have, I work in a mixed school anyway. So when you see them cheering up the female gender, the male also want to do something to try, you know, and take over the female as well. So I think we should try and really put these things in our schools and in our homes, because why should a child hear the horn of a father and run into his room? Why? Why should a wife know that my husband is back and then all of a sudden everything becomes abnormal? Your life is under threat because anything you do is being questioned. Why should women live under such threats? So I think we should actually do more to send these things to our curriculum, to teach it as one of the values, and ensure that our children learn the right thing, have value and relevance and respect for one another.
Tochukwu, I lost a bit of the conversation, but I am actually working on a project called Raising the 21st Century Boy Child. And my friends in school, they call me the privileged feminist because I always tell them I'm not a feminist. So, and they ask, why do you say you're not a feminist? Every woman should be a feminist. And I tell them, I said, I was not raised to be a feminist. I'm the only girl in the midst of 5 boys. And in my house, it has always been each according to their capacities. So that's how the idea of equity came. I grew up with the idea of equity. Now, I'm fortunate to have 3 of my brothers that are married. You know, there's nothing like gender role. In my house, you are hungry, you go to the kitchen. Don't say, oh, mommy is going to cook for you, because mommy will tell you, I cannot provide food and cook for you. So you go to the kitchen, you cook for yourself. I visited my younger brother when the wife gave birth. And let me kind of give you a picture of their routine. When he wakes up in the morning, he goes to the kitchen, he washes the plate, he cleans the house because he has to go to work. He will boil water for the child to take a bath. He wakes the mom up. Once the woman is bathing the child, he goes to prepare the baby's food. Once she's done, while she's feeding the baby and clothing the baby, he comes to the parlor, clears up everywhere, cleans, like he will clean everywhere and goes out before he leaves the house. So this is the orientation they got. Now they are able to replicate the same orientation in their children. They have kids who are about, okay, I think the eldest, his first son is 7. At 7, he can actually take care of his younger one, irrespective of his gender. Now, there's also this notion of women are this, women are that, women are this, women are that. This is a conscious effort we need to make. We need to start teaching our young men how to respect women. I go on social media, I see conversations around, oh, a woman can only offer her body. Women don't have anything to offer. And there was, I think it was Afe Babalola that released a list of their first class graduates in medicine a few months ago. And out of about 15 students with first class, about 13 of them were females. And I took a screenshot of that list of students with their pictures. I posted it on the Nigerian Rant group. And I said, these are women. These women are topping their class. You come here to say women have nothing to offer because you already have you have this conditional mind that tells you a woman has nothing to offer. A woman who is not intelligent cannot make a first class. So we need to start reorientating our young men that the world is changing and they need to change with the world. You don't expect to be in the 21st century. You want to marry a wife and you want your wife to act like your grandmother or your mother. I tell people, your grandmother was not working in the office. She wasn't waking up at 6 a.m. or at 5 a.m. to go to work. Your father probably didn't have a DSTV to subscribe to. If you look at the economic demands in families these days, you will know that yes, there's war. If you're not careful, marriages will no longer hold. Trust me, an average young girl right now will tell you that when I'm going into a marriage, I'll ask the man, what's his perception about divorce? That's how bad things are. An average young man will tell you, I don't want to get married. I want to just have a baby mama. That's the latest now. And that's because of the demands. Most of our fathers didn't go to private schools. Everybody is patronizing private schools. The government has so much bastardized the public educational system that even at university level, you want to either go outside the country or go to a private university so that you can graduate. How much are you earning as a man? How much are you earning as a woman? By the time you pay phone subscription, you pay DSTV subscription, you pay school fees, you see that the atmosphere is already tense. And these are some of the issues affecting families, resulting into domestic violence.
Thanks, Patience.
Are we just too?
Thanks, Patience. Emmanuel is said he's just making it, like, so we should just be patient with him. So I think we can keep going. And I was going to, I think in a way we are maybe heading towards solutions already. And given my legal mind, I think it's important to look at legal sort of like solutions, but given that domestic violence is also a social problem, so a socio-legal sort of solution would be ideal. And why do I speak about the law? Because when you look at most African countries and violence against women, in as much as some constitutions, tell everyone we're all equal before the law, you have the right to life, and so forth and so forth. They're gender neutral, which is all right. But this reality that we're speaking about, domestic violence, needs to be addressed, right? It needs to be dealt with by the law to send a strong message that it cannot be condoned. But now those laws are somewhat lacking. So it's important to just have some, legal reforms, law reforms, bring about this laws that can protect women, train the judiciary and law enforcement or various stakeholders that can actually help in just alleviating this. And while listening to Handel and Patience, I loved how you guys said we need to bring up a new generation of men, right? We need to teach them better. So what happens now with the ones that we currently have that are still stuck in their old mindsets that this thing, So because I feel like we still need to bring them to the table and make them understand that, all right, times have changed. We're no longer back in the days where, it's always easy to hear this narrative, oh, my grandmom, my mom, especially when women are deciding to assert themselves. And again, women asserting themselves seems like a threat again to the African society that we have. But it's important to understand that if we're living in different times, everyone needs to understand that, okay, I need to probably change something, maybe my mindset, but you cannot be stuck and condoning violence that perhaps our grandmoms endured, or maybe your mom endured because that's what you were used to, that's what you were brought up with. But at the end of the day, we're speaking about respecting human beings. We're speaking about humanity. We're speaking about us being human beings. So it's important then to have this conversation, bring everyone to the party, religious sort of authorities and community leaders too will be important to engage so they can, sensitize the masses wherever they are, their various audiences. So so in my head, or in my opinion, a socio-legal sort of approach will be ideal.
Okay, let me come in here. We're trying to prefer solutions now. I think we should also ask a very vital question. What about the victim?
Mm-hmm.
Does the victim in any way, the victim?
Okay.
Does the victim in any way contribute to domestic violence? I say this because we look at some men would tell you, I was not a wife beater. I wasn't this way before now. So what happened? I think while we try to educate the boy child, or rather, let me generalize it, the youth, we should also try to look deep into, first, understanding the family problems. Because most times, you could see people who are doing very well, all of a sudden they're seeking for divorce simply because the man had to strike at a particular time. And, it becomes very strange. There's a saying, once you strike once, you strike again. So are the victims in any way responsible at any percentage at all? Are they responsible in a way for domestic violence?
Can I just say this, and maybe again, I'm going to break the table here, but Handel, let's say you're just walking back home and you get mugged, right? Are we going to have that conversation whereby should we blame you for walking back home, maybe late at night and stuff like that? Because why am I saying this? When it comes to this domestic violence issue, there's always just that, I don't want to say victim blaming, and this also extends to sexual violence, right? Because sometimes when girls are subjected to sexual assault, what were you wearing, right? So, but when other sort of crimes occur, we never seldom hear those questions as in, why were you walking back? Why were you walking back at the night handle to get marked? You know, so I think it's important to be sort of sensitive, and maybe my sort of answer then would be, I don't see, maybe we should not really be blaming victims or necessarily asking the role that victims play in this issue, because at the end of the day, they're a victim of a crime, a victim of something, right? But you're not really, if anything, it's empathy that we need to put out there. Sorry, Patience.
Dr. Corin, I have to speak from a peace and mediator perspective right now.
Okay.
Because when you're talking about solution, you can't talk about solution without talking about the causes. What are the root causes? What are the immediate causes? All the while we've been talking about economic crisis and the rest of it, right? Mm-hmm. Currently, these are immediate triggers of domestic violence. Yeah, okay. We've had the cultural aspect of domestic violence for a very long time. Mm-hmm. But most of the immediate triggers right now are mainly as a result of economic challenges, right? And I do not particularly agree with you saying that we should not blame the victim. Why would I blame the victim? I always tell people that I don't like conflict mediation. I do not like conflict mediation. I like conflict prevention, right? Mm-hmm. And how do you prevent conflict? Let me give you instances of people that I know that are in relationships. These guys are not married. I know a lady in my church who said she enjoys her man beating her. They are still dating. They've been dating for 4 years, right? Now, we were having a conversation in public, and the lady was there. It wasn't like she wasn't around, so she was seated with us in that table having this conversation. And the guy was, you know, the male ego thing. He was boasting, saying that there was a time the lady messed up. He was really angry with the lady. He brought 2 ladies home and had a threesome. Meanwhile, the supposed fiance was sitting in that gathering. Now, these are some of the early warning signs, because we also talk about the early warning signs that we see before we venture into any adventure that we intend to. Now, these signs are already there. She's saying them, they're obvious to her, right? She's probably thinking that by the time she's legally married to this guy is going to change automatically. Now she goes into the marriage and the guy remains himself. Is she a victim?
Okay, that's, I get you. I hear what you're saying. But if we look at domestic violence, and again, that's why it's a universal thing, right?
Yeah.
It's been there, right? So we cannot now so if it's been recurrent, if it's always been a thing, that means there is a bigger issue there, as opposed to a woman wanting that, maybe you wanting to say that if she's to experience anything, it's on her, right? Because there are a lot of women, exactly. So it could be, again, I'm not a statistician, but it could be a tiny percentage to that, right? But that's not to say because some women like the certain things. And again, which is fair, there are cultural norms, right? Whereby women say, if my man doesn't beat me, he doesn't beat me. That happens in Uganda, right? But that's not to say that we're going to justify what's happening in terms of domestic violence because certain women actually condone whatever they're subjected to, right? And again, coming from a victimological sort of side, and that's where I feel like it's important, and because I come from the victimological sort of angle, when you're a victim of something, it does you a disservice after the trauma you've been subjected to be asked, but why didn't you? You understand? So that's why I was like, the whole question thing.
I think I lost you there.
Can you get me?
Yeah, I can.
Can you get me, Hendo?
I can hear you.
Can you guys get me?
Yeah, we can get you, Emmanuel.
Hello?
Very sorry, but as usual, Africa on first thing. I prepared everything best for this one. I hope it's going to last. I'll just try to get some quick fix solution. I don't know where you guys are at now. Did you guys continue with the solutions or you were?
We've been going at it, breaking tables.
Anyway, it's perfect. I mean, moderation was not necessary with regards to the solution, but maybe we'll just proceed here. So as everybody taking their turns with regards to the solutions, or you're just having a...
We're actually busy with the solutions.
Okay, okay, then just go ahead. So I don't know if anybody has answered my specific issue, because when you mentioned and you said something that exists, it's a little bit personal to me now, right? I'm always in that divide of how do we fix this problem? I'm an African man living in a very westernized world.
Hello? Okay.
Yes, yeah, I can get you. Can you guys get me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, sure, we can hear you.
So I don't know if you guys already addressed this particular problem, but it's personal to me in the sense that I'm an African man living in the very westernized world. I cannot even claim the African cultures that much because I think I have moved away from the African culture a little bit too much, but I was in an African world. So there's always that conflict of you cannot do both. Partly the reasons why African men take the tone which they take, which may sound bad or may be bad, is also because of some of the things which I feel like the African men are overloaded, overburdened when it comes to responsibilities. Hence, that's also the reason why they might not be as well behaved as they ought to, not looking for any reasons for bad behavior, but there might be some connection there in the sense that he has nobody to talk to, he's the man of the house, you're a man, you should not cry like a woman. All of these things put together might be the causes why the man is who he is. But also you're in the Western world where when you turn on your TV, you also see that, okay, the man and the woman are equal, a man can cry, express your emotions, but you cannot leave that world which you see around you in your African context. So I always feel like there's that conflict of personality, even from a personal level. I don't know if you guys have tried to address that.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, like what we were discussing while you were away was how do we solve the issue of domestic violence in Africa? Now, we've basically talked about the factors responsible for domestic violence. Now, the question you just asked, how do we marry the two ideologies, the Western ideology and the African context? Now, the truth is there's nothing wrong with borrowing, like I said earlier, but how do you borrow? What do you borrow? To what end do you borrow? When you borrow culture, you also need to situate that culture within your own context. What are the positive sides of the Western culture that we're borrowing? What are their negatives? If we're saying, oh, gender equality in Africa, can we actually have gender equality? Considering the level of our development, considering the level of our economic dynamics, considering the fact that we're not that advanced in terms of technological know-how and the rest of it, how do we read this sense? Is it when people come to me and say I'm in a domestic violence situation, what I always ask is, what do you want? Do you want this relationship? If you say yes, I can probably start giving you ways in which you can resolve your conflicts or you can adjust to the new realities on ground. But if you say no, I would also know what to say to you. And the reason is simple. We've had cases where people who are going through domestic violence, there was, I don't know if Hande can remember a case of a lawyer in Benue State who came up to say she was being abused. The whole of social media took that case up. And at the end of the day, she came back to say she has reconciled with her husband. There was also the Chika Ike, the Nigerian actress situation, and everybody came out to say this, that. And at the end of the day, she reconciled with her husband and said, oh, people were jealous of her and everything. So as a conflict mediator, I ask you, honestly, go back, think about what you want. But my advice for domestic violence is usually take a break. I'm in the school of thought of those, I support those who say when there is domestic violence, the first way of solving that is let the two people take a break. Even in church, I'm happy now that in the Catholic Church, priests have started emphasizing on separation. In the past, it used to be a taboo, but religious leaders have started emphasizing take a break, right? And at the end of the day, look for a way of readjusting the economic situation. If your earnings cannot take care of your lifestyle, you need to cut it down. Be you the man, be you the woman. These are ways of mitigating against domestic violence. Then we'll also talk about gender role. Mr. Aya just came back. We've had a series of conversation about that. There's a need for us to go back to the drawing table. How are we raising our young girls? How are we raising our boys? Are we raising our boys for these challenges of the 21st century? Or we're raising them with the notion of, yes, they are men, they cannot cry, they can't do this, they can't do that. Looking at the various challenges, do you still think that the gender role thing, or it is the woman's duty to cook food? You come back from work at 4, your wife is coming back at 9 o'clock, you expect her to go into the kitchen and cook. Is that still feasible in the 21st century? These are some of the things we should begin to talk about and see how we can redefine and reorientate our young men and women on the new realities.
Okay, so I think we have some aspects of counseling, the separation and all of that. But I really want to get Mr. Handel's opinion on this. I mean, like, just to be sure that as a fellow man, what is perspective with regards to this divide in culture? Maybe I'm alone in this feeling of.
No, you're not. You're not.
Okay.
Go ahead, Handel.
Okay, let me come in here. Good to have you back. Actually, we have, done lots of extensive discussions on some of these issues, but I want to come in from another perspective. Domestic violence for us right now is a vice. Okay, it's a no-no. That's what we're trying to say. Yes. It's not a virtue. Good. Now, how does this come about? We've talked about different factors. Yes, economic, society, religious, however, good. But I think if we can actually go deeper into tackling this vice by way of educating, I think would come off the whole domestic violence, at least the ratio, the percentage will be very minimal. What am I trying to say? There is something about the African father. An African father knows how to instill discipline on the children. Now, for every typical African home, every child from that home knows how to breathe. If it's from the Yoruba culture, you have to genuflect, you have to prostrate, okay? Now, that's something that is inbuilt, and the child grows with that. When children see what happens in the home, they come back and do the same thing, which is why in marriage counseling, educating fathers is important, educating the wives important. What you do before your children is important, because we live in a world where it's not about teach me. It's about show me how to do it, and I'll learn it faster. So when these children see these things, that's what brings about the bullying you have in schools, the roughness, the stubbornness, children not being responsible, and then discipline is affected. So for me, I think we should look at our schools and teach properly. Look at the homes and imbibe these virtues, right? Go to our religious houses and then even our society. Therefore, our leaders who are going to be there when cases like this come up will be definitely non-biased about it. They tackle the problem and give us preferred solution. It will not be nice if we keep talking about this without getting to the root cause, which is the home. Children don't learn domestic violence from schools. No, they don't do that. They learn it from home. And whatever they see their fathers do to their mothers is what they think should be the man nature of them. And when they come to school, they exhibit these things. So I think we need to draw this lesson back to the root cause, which is the home.
Okay.
Thanks, Handel. I think, Emmanuel, I just wanted to follow up on your question about reconciling being an African man living in a Western, and being surrounded by Western influence, right? Yeah. And I think it's very important to address that, because I don't think you're the only one that finds himself in that sort of situation, right? And my sort of solution or idea to this would be revising or relooking at masculinity, right? Because when you look at whether we like it or not, patriarchy can be harmful to women, yes, but it's also harmful to men. Because this very patriarchy that tells men you must not do this, you cannot show emotions, you must always be the provider, and somewhat comes with a lot of insinuations, doesn't really help men in any way, right? Yes, we may see that sometimes they are the father figures and we see them in prominent roles and everything, but at the end of the day, it takes a toll on them, on men psychologically, right? And again, sometimes there's just this tension as in how do I reconcile this, like you said, when I'm living in this sort of modern world. So I think it's important to know that because we're currently having economic crisis, and this sort of impact how men see themselves as providers, how men can express themselves when things are not going well, right? We need to also just provide, maybe not support groups per se, but we need to be kinder to men, right? To let them know that, you know what, it's okay. You don't have to have everything figured out. It's okay. You don't always have to go kill your back out there and everything, because I think working or revisiting masculinity will go a long way towards shifting things in the homes, right? Whereby fathers don't feel like they have to be this dictator, right? That just causes chaos at home. They don't have to feel the need to beat their women when things are getting very pressing on them or their shoulders. So as long as we're able to understand that men at the end of the day are human beings and need to be, catered in terms of their psychological or mental sort of needs because of what comes with being a man, I think it could help in alleviating this scourge that we call domestic violence.
Okay, thank you. Like one of the intentions of these discussions we have is also to ignite more of these conversations at home. And then also, I really like the angle handled to where he mentioned the home as a starting place. But also, if he has to scale up, I think some of the aspects which you guys have touched with is at maybe a policy level, some policy, some government action to accompany homes, because we all talk about the government, but at least everybody in the government is from a home. And I have this, I don't know if it's a famous or it's not so famous quote I usually use, where I say, if every man is raised right, we will not have most of the feminist or gender violence problems here. Because that's my I don't know if it's a very popular or unpopular, but I usually say, yeah, if every mother raises her son right, we might not have the gender violence issues we are having. For some reason,
we didn't talk about that in your absence.
Father and mother should raise their children because women are originators. Fathers should raise fathers and mothers.
Corinne, but we did talk about that, only that he wasn't around. And I remember how I said I'm being called a privileged feminist because I wasn't raised to be a girl and I wasn't raised to be a guy. I was raised to be a human being. So I didn't know what was called gender role, gender disparity until I became an adult and I started hearing about feminism. Yeah, I grew up in the midst of boys, but they do everything. I do.
Thank you very much for the update and the correction, father and mother. And yeah, it's the reason why I'm not.
Feminists are not the bad guys. They're not the bad guys.
They are not. They are not. They're not the bad guys.
It's the way we want to view. They're not.
I think no, because when we talk about the issue of feminism, I think it's just there's so much misconception about the concept of feminism. There's the radical feminists who believe that, oh, let's burn everything to the ground and start all over again.
Kill the men.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. The radical feminists will tell you that it's the home what's problematic.
I wouldn't agree with kill the men. I wouldn't. I don't say that.
They say the home is the problem. That's where the violence occurs.
Now let me even talk about. Let me shift a bit to the last election that just happened in Nigeria. One thing I said was, feminists won without a fight, and that was when the Lagos State governorship candidate was being addressed as an Igbo man because his mom is from Igbo and everybody wanted to term him an Igbo guy. And I said, feminism won without a fight. The men, the women are not the ones saying because his mom is from Igbo, he's an Igbo guy, but the men are the ones saying that because his mom is from Igbo, he's an Igbo guy. Now, when we talk about feminism, any concept that is not geared towards humanity and the preservation of humanity becomes a problem to the larger society. With the radical feminism, what I see in future is a case of like with the way feminists are going, especially the radical feminists, we'll get to a point where the women become so powerful and the men will start, what do I call it? Is it masculinity or something? Because you now start seeing them saying, oh, the women they are not so powerful, the women are not suppressing us, we need to start all over again. How do we create a balance? I think that's what feminism should be all about. How do we create a balance? How do we ensure that men and women complement each other, not compete with each other? So it is this contestation of, oh, let's compete, gender equal rights and everything. We're equal. Access to education should be equal, yeah? But when it comes to certain other aspects of the home, I don't think we are equal in any way. There's never a way we talk about equality that men will begin to give birth to children. We can't have that. But we can have a situation where, oh, a woman gives birth, the man is able to take care of the child, the man is able to babysit the baby. It shouldn't be the role of the woman to do the babysitting, do the breastfeeding, do every other thing.
Patient, I just want to ask you a question, just to follow up what you're saying.
Okay.
I brought the whole feminism thing there just to spice things up, and I noticed Handel just kept on smiling and decided not to say anything as we went in the feminist direction.
Okay.
I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
When you say men will never have children and they cannot be equal, right?
Yeah.
Is it that you are saying that we are different, or you are saying that one is superior to the other?
Biologically, we are different. Okay. I don't think there's a superior gender.
Okay, thank you.
I just think we're just different in biological composition, and we should complement each other in that regard and not necessarily compete for who is more superior. We are all superior because we are all humans.
At times when you say that we cannot be equal, some people will take the reverse to say that you mean that somebody is superior to the other, but you just mean that we're different and we should complement each other, not that somebody is superior. Okay.
Yeah, no, nobody's superior.
Okay.
Okay,
Dr.
if I can just chime in here.
Yeah, I have seen your camera blinking on and off. I could see that you were boiling with some idea.
No, I'm not even boiling at all. I'm not. It's important to note here that, okay, like I said, feminism is not a bad guy, right? And we have various strands of feminism. You have your radicals, you have your liberals, you have your eco-conservatives. So there's a whole lot, right? But at the end of the day, what feminists are actually advocating for is the equal treatment of women. Right now, we're speaking on domestic violence. Can we say that when it comes to domestic violence, we've just said that it disproportionately affects women, right? So can we say that men are disproportionately affected by violence or treated badly because they are men? Can we start there, right? But then again, the whole feminism movement, like I said, it's not bad. And it's funny because there's this survey that's out there which says that, I think it was in Australia, which says women's rights have gone too far, right? Which now speaks to the whole imbalance here that maybe we're going to get to a point whereby we might not be able to balance things. But let's bring it back to the African context because we're speaking Africa. When we speak of equality here, we're speaking formal equality, that's equality before the law. We're speaking substantive equality, like, okay, cool, let's be equal as in human beings, right? Then transformative, which is a blend now of formal, as in I have the law to protect me and you can see me as a human being, right? So when feminists are advocating for this, so you have the fight for formal laws. And again, that now speaks to my solution as to domestic violence. Most laws, and I'm speaking from the Cameroonian perspective, don't provide women protection against violence against women, despite the fact that we said it's a reality, right? The state needs to do more to actually address this violence that women are subjected to, right? So when feminists are advocating for equality, it's more like, let's also have those laws that can protect us because we're human beings. We're not saying we're superior to men, but the fact that we're human beings, we're actually entitled to be protected by the same state. The state is meant to protect all citizens, regardless of their sex, sexual orientation, ethnicity, and so forth and so forth. Right, so that's what we need, or what we're actually advocating for. So it's not to say we're trying to say that no. But coming again to how a man can never give birth, it's standard, right? But then again, feminism actually advocates for equality based on difference. We're not saying that a man will someday breastfeed a baby. You can't do it, right? But also sameness in the sense that the fact that we are human beings, regardless of the gender or sex that you and I have, we are entitled to be protected, respected. So I just wanted to give that 2 cents.
Okay, Dr.
Karen, can I come in? Can I come in from another perspective?
Becoming very interesting.
From another
because
perspective,
when we talk about laws, I think we should be talking about laws. Can you hear me?
Yeah, maybe let Handel go first. Then you come in. I feel like we have been using the male voice here for a while.
Okay. Okay, I'm not talking about feminism here. Okay. Okay. Now, the thing is this. I think what we're experiencing, why the word feminism sounds so offensive to some men and sounds very rational to other men, is because of the way the wave. Okay, let's take this election, for example. Okay, let's take the Labour Party, for example. You know, there used to be a system, okay? Now, there used to be a system, and all of a sudden, from nowhere, someone came out and is teaching us another system, that this can be done this way, but with another format, okay? Now, everyone is buying into that ideology. Okay, I think there is a way out of this suppression of our democracy in this aspect. So therefore, we can go this way and still achieve our results. Why feminism for some women has gone above what it should be, and their understanding of equality, total equality with man, is because the woman has suffered so much depression in the past. And now there is a voice to speak up, to say, I am a human as well. But now the woman, the gender is not following the right wave. They just want to be out of it, all of a sudden. And then that's where you get all types of feminism from. And then the woman will tell you, no, I'm equal to you in every aspect of it. So I think what we need to do is actually understand, first of all, that those who are fighting for feminism, or the feminists themselves, have been so suppressed in society, and now they are only we've given them this voice. Okay, speak. Let's hear what you have to say. And then instead of just speaking, we have a war. That's what is happening.
Okay, thank you. Patience, you want to still add something, or do we move to the final part of this discussion? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes,
Patience, can you hear us?
Yes, yes, I can.
Do we move to the final part of this discussion?
Are you referring to me?
Yes.
Okay, what my concluding remarks is, first and foremost, like Dr. Corin talked about, we need laws. I won't call them laws that protect the women, but laws that protect humanity. Because if we start talking about creating laws that protect the women, what happens to the men? For me, it should be laws that protect humanity. There should be standard practice for everybody. Nobody should be abused, whether you're a man or a woman. If there's an assault, if there's a slap from a man or from a woman, there should be a punishment for that. We can't have separate laws for both genders. If we have separate laws for both genders, we'll be creating another problem. Let's have a law that deals with humanity. Other than the laws, we need to, because one thing I know about policymakers, they make policies, they are no implementation. The government needs to do more in terms of implementations of these policies. When there is a report of an abuse in Nigeria, for instance, the police people, even if it's a sexual abuse, you start hearing them, share you not enjoy them. Those kind of stupid questions shouldn't even come up. Yeah, they shouldn't even come up. So we need laws, and we need to train people to know how to handle this kind of situations. I don't think the general police people should be empowered to take care of issues of rape. There should be a special department for that. And in terms of domestically, within the home confines now, I think, like we said earlier, there's need for reorientation of both the females and the male children in the house. We need to also emphasize on the economic challenges, because that is really what is bringing out this whole aggression, frustration. What we're currently having in the domestic front is frustration, aggression, because people cannot meet up with their daily expectation. They tend to be frustrated, and it is this frustration that they exhibit in people that are kind of unequal in terms of power play, in terms of power relations. At times you see the woman venting the anger on the housemaid, on the children. So it is this whole idea of economic issue. How do we make sure that people begin to live within their means? It is because people are no longer living within their means. You want to drive the best car. How much are you earning? The issue of contentment should be revisited. These are values that has kept us this far. You can't be earning 100,000 and you put your kids in schools where they pay 500. At the end of the day, it's not just family thing. Now you now start extending your expectations to uncles and relatives, and you transfer your aggression to your uncle, to your auntie who hasn't even paid his children's school fees, saying that is not helpful. So we need to go back to the basics. First and foremost, train the children, no gender role, allow everybody to work according to his or her capacity. And let the boys, let the girls know that, yes, you have a father. All men are not dogs. if your father is not a dog, another man is not a dog. We need to be able to establish that from the very beginning. And if your sister is not a bitch, if your mother is not a bitch, all women are no bitches. They deserve to be respected the same way you respect your sister, the same way you respect your mother. So with all these little things back in the house, I think we can get it right.
Thank you very much. I think you have set a very good precedence for the closing statement. I want to go now to Dr. Corinne. Let's just approach that same manner, that at the policy level and at the home front level. What are some of the, should I call it, advice or solutions you want to put out there? Closing remarks, Dr. Corinne.
Okay. Yeah, like a legal mind, I still insist that the law is important. Whether we like it or not, the law sometimes in its neutrality, right, can be oppressive or suppressive. So we should just pay attention to that. So it's important then, yes, to sort of have laws that may not necessarily protect women, but that guard against sexual violence, domestic violence.
I lost you guys there.
Right, so it's important to have laws that target.
We can get you patients. We can get you. Go ahead, Corinne.
Yeah, so I'm saying it's important to have laws that actually target these issues that we're speaking about, right? Because their reality. We cannot say that the Constitution that provides the right to life actually deals with the domestic violence that women are subjected to. So it's important then to have laws that actually are tailored to address the scourge of domestic violence or gender-based violence. The social legal other approach, the social approach we're going to be advocating for is just maybe just we're Africans at the end of the day. We cannot leave, we cannot be far removed from cultural traditions, right? So it's important to tap into the positive African values that we have, right? We're not saying African culture is bad, it's evil, but there are good sides to the culture that can help us in a fight against domestic violence against women. It's important to have conversations around patriarchy and what it expects of us human beings, right? Men and women. Masculinity can be problematic sometimes. Femininity can be problematic sometimes. It's important to revisit, engage, as in, how is this thing harming us? How is this thing bettering us? So whatever is not harming, we can revisit it and probably reform to have a better society. It's also important to bring multi-stakeholders to the party, like religious leaders. You know, women go to the church whenever they have so much going on. So it's not really fair for you as religious leader to tell someone to endure to the point where she will lose her life. You know, so it's important to just, you know, be that voice of reason, be that voice of respect that's going to protect your female sort of like audience. Or yeah, so it's important then to just have those conversations. And yes, I think those are my inputs. Thanks.
Okay. Last but not least, hand it over to you.
I saw it.
Okay, thank you very much. Corinne, you've said a lot about, you've actually talked about many of my points here, but I'll say this in conclusion. I think every man has to be a good counselor. You know, if you can't be one, find someone who can help you. You know, our schools need to adopt the counseling programs, train staff who can actually give good education to children, and bring in topics like this into our curriculum so that children can actually learn. Our religious leaders are very, very vital, have a very vital role to play here, because just like Corinne said, if you have issues, the first place you go to is to your religious pastor or your religious leader. So I think they are supposed to have so much, you know, to give when it comes to things like this. And the issue of endurance shouldn't be there. Create a reasonable solution where you know this person is suffering. What's the redemptive method? What's the redemptive approach? And then our community as well, our society should have, you know, people you can always go to, leaders who are inclined, who are experienced, who can actually handle cases like this. And I think if we can begin this fight from the home, I think our society is going to be a very good place for us all, and domestic violence will be a thing of the past.
So, Thanks once again to our various panelists for the inspiring words and some of the solutions proposed. I think the intention of this conversation is not to solve the media issue. It's to spark up the thought and spark up this conversation that we left off. So with Oyald, we are going to be having more of such conversations. And from time to time, we're going to call upon inspired and insightful minds like yours to come in and then give us your thoughts in regards to this. Definitely very grateful for the time you spent. And once again, I apologize for the, should I call it, light challenges I had during this conversation with hospitalities in Africa. I'm very, very grateful. I think you guys are going to do definitely the final product, go out there.
Good evening.
And then please do us the pleasure of sharing it. That's what Oyald is all about, the Organization of Young African Leaders for Development. We try to scale up ideas like this, start this conversation, and then push it out into the everyday man telephone or laptop so that he can start thinking in that direction. So thanks once again. It was a pleasure having you guys on Chakara TV, powered by Oyald.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Bye. Bye.
Dr. Corinne. Nice one. All right, Lady Patience. Bye.
All
Okay.
right, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.